Hi, everyone. Instead of our normal regular episode, we are going to release our previously recorded bonus episode. This week, we had a few little life events that happened, and we are not able to release our regular episode. We hope to come back to you guys next week with our regular episode, but for today, we hope you enjoy the bonus.
Hello, Heather. How are you today?
Thomas, I'm doing pretty good today. I have got my mugi cha for summer. How about you?
It's one of those Monday blues days, isn't it? But anyway, a bonus episode. It's been a while since we've had one, no?
I can't remember when the last one was, honestly.
I honestly can't remember. Well, today's episode is kind of a bit of a tiny bit of everything, if I'm honest. There's a yokai, there's a poem, there's meat. Yeah, sounds strange. But this came from when I was studying some more about the yokai compendiums that we've talked about by Toriyama Sekian. I came across one which referenced a poem, which we did many, many, many moons ago from the Ogoro Hyakuin issue, which we love. And I don't know, I was thinking, do you want to start off by reading the poem to remind people before I jump into the strange tidbit I found for this bonus episode?
I would love to do that. That's great. 奥山にもみじ踏み分け、泣く鹿の声聞く時ぞ、秋は悲しき。
Okay. So I'm intrigued as to what the English is for that poem in your book, because I actually also have an English translation in this other book I have, and I feel that it will be quite different.
Ooh, so this one says, in the deep mountains, making a path through the fallen leaves, the plaintive belling of the stag, how forlorn the autumn feels.
So that one is quite different in wording, but I feel the meaning is the same. So the translation I have from mine is, deep in the mountains, I hear the cry of the stag searching for its mate amongst the momiji. How sad autumn leaves feel to me.
Ah, okay. So
So I feel the premise is the same.
I feel like I'm just glancing and my knowledge of Japanese. Yeah, the crying voice, and then momiji usually means like maple leaf. The last line is fall is sad, which I agree. I think fall is a depressing season.
Really? I love
I'm
fall. Sorry, autumn. How dare you? I am
okay. I'm sorry. Let
British.
me speak
Autumn.
British. Autumn.
But saying that we started with that poem, that is, we're going to leave the poem for a minute, but hold on to the memory
Hmm,
of the word momiji
hmm.
and autumn leaves, because ultimately all of this will lead back to that one specific word. I want to start with a yokai known as Momonji, which does sound a bit like Momiji. We can kind of translate that to something like Old Man Momo, so I'm gonna call him Momo-san from now on. Now, this yokai we don't actually know much about, but at least according to Toriyama Sekian and his opinion on this yokai, he thinks that his name comes from two different things. One is from an animal known as the momonga, which lives in the mountains, which was also known by the name of Nobusuma. And also, his name comes from another yokai called the Gagoji, which we talked about in our Oni episode. And he feels that these two names have been merged together to bring about the name of Old Man Momo. And so it said that for this creature, or I guess we can just call him a supernatural man, I suppose, when the hour grows late and no one is around, and when there is a thick fog, and when the wind is strong, it will transform into an old man so that it can move about. It is said that any traveler who then encounters this person will sadly fall ill, and it's said that this is Old Man Momo. Now, the reason I started with this is, so in the olden days in Japan, four-legged animals, or four-legged mammals, for instance, your rabbit, your deers, your boars, and things like that, were referred to as mononga, as well as momonji, just like the yokai. And during the Edo period, the eating of land mammals was actually seen as a kind of taboo thing, and people weren't really encouraged to do it. It was really frowned upon. What they did in an attempt to get people to carry on eating these meats, they actually gave them different names to make them sound more appealing in a way, or at the very least to make it seem that the authorities didn't know what people were selling to the people. So, example, they turned the wild boars into yamakujira, or a mountain whale. Horse meat was changed to sakura, or cherry blossoms. And deer meat was changed to momiji.
I've heard sakura before in reference to horses. I'm like, oh, they're
Hmm.
oh, horse. Oh. And as far as the deer and rabbits and things, those were meant for more noble persons. Like common people weren't supposed to and weren't allowed to eat those specific animals, so they would rename them too to kind, like you said, to sneak it under the authorities' eyes, sort of.
Well, I know that when I was reading, it said that there was like certain establishment that served these kind of food would attempt their best to keep a low profile from the authorities and things like that. And they would even use things such as maple leaves as a signal for customers so they would know that they see a momiji leaf, that is where they could go to get these taboo foods. I'm not sure if it was specifically you saw a momiji leaf, you could go and get deer, or if they could get all of the taboo meats, perhaps maybe a different place would have sakura depictions, and that means you could go get your horse meat. I'm not sure if it was a separate thing or not.
Horse meat. Oh.
But yeah, that is the thing I came across. I thought it was really interesting that this yokai linked to this taboo relationship with meat. This meat was renamed as Momiji. And then going back to the poem and the idea of Momiji, apparently Momiji was picked because of this poem and the fact that the stag is in within the Momiji. So Momiji and deer and stag were joined together because of this old poem. And that was the interesting thing I found out for this bonus episode that I wanted to tell you.
Oh, that's phenomenal. Oh my goodness. I was wondering why we were reading the poem first and I was super excited, but oh my gosh, that is such an amazing connection. I'm so glad you found that.
It's such a very strange connection. However, I do see the connotation. Like a lot of Japanese people, like they try and link back to old Japan, the famous people, and especially the famous poetry. So the fact that they chose this definitely shows that this poem did also stand the test of time. Also, probably shows that this was a poem that even like the layman would have still known, I assume.
That's an awfully good question. Yeah, we need to do some more research into that. That's something I would love to be able to touch on.
And very quick, so the last thing I did come across around this whole idea of it was taboo during this time. However, there was also potentially other reasons why people wanted to try and eat it. One of them was around this time you had like the Dutch foreigners who were now coming into Japan, bringing their science, their culture, and their language. And foreigners at the time obviously ate a lot of these types of meat. To the Japanese, they saw these people who were taller than them, stockier than them, maybe even stronger than them, and they began to associate this meat with being a strong foreigner. So even though the meat was taboo, they wanted to gain access to this so they could themselves become stronger people.
Really? That was in the book you found?
That was on a website I found, an
Hmm.
academy website which had a history of Japanese meat. So I thought that was also
Oh.
interesting to come across. And the last
Yeah.
thing to mention was there was the idea that eating meat was good for medicinal purposes.
Hmm.
And so several times during the year, there would be this rite, I suppose, called the yakuro, which was medicinal hunting. It was basically a ceremonial hunt which concluded in the assumption of different types of caught game, which again shows that yes, it was taboo, but people wanted to gain access to it to try and still improve themselves.
Yeah, like it was referred to as medicinal meat.
Medicinal meat.
Well, I think primarily the diet back then was more fish and pickles and rice and depending on what part of the country you're in, also like kind of a wheat product.
Well, did you know that I also came across that at one point even more meat was banned, including fish?
Huh?
And so the emperor, after he had banned the consumption of fish, did promise to give the people extra rice to make up for the deficit in the meat they could no longer eat.
Ooh, that's not a
And
balanced
that
diet.
definitely opens up into I kind of now want to do a whole episode on the history of meat in Japan because it seems quite interesting the fact that not just these meats were banned, but even historically stuff that they relied upon, especially fish, was banned by the emperors because,
Reasons.
reasons, which is why I want to do the extra research. I want to know, was it a religious thing where it became taboo suddenly, or was it we want to reserve the fish for the rich and we don't want the poor to have it because they can just have rice? I don't know. So yeah, this strange little tidbit that I came across definitely has opened it up to me wanting to do some culinary history of my own.
Yes, teach me all the things. Teach me all I love culinary history. Find all the things and tell them share them with me.
Well, there you have it, my little thing for today.
That poem now has a much different meaning besides sad autumn, illegal meat.
Illegal meat. Tree meat, I guess we could
Tree
call it.
meat. Tree meat.
Tree meat.
That is just really fantastic. Thank you for finding that. I am so glad. I know you mentioned it. I think we talked about this last year.
We
This
talked
has
about this.
been
I think at the same time, I was like, I found an interesting fact about meat, and then it's taken us months to get around to actually recording it.
well, it's a good timing for it now. So I'm glad we saved it until now.
You're very welcome. I don't know how to sign off from this. I'm trying to think.
Well, that's all for today's bonus episode. Be sure to tune in next time where we talk about something else probably not related to meat. Does that help any?
Well, so yeah, I'm gonna say, well, I've said it many times now. That's my little short fact. I will tell you what our next bonus episode is planned to be. Like I've said, we're gonna tell you there will be a bonus. We'll tell you what it's about. But when it comes out is a matter of when we have the time around work schedules and around the weekly episodes. But I think it's safe to say the next bonus one is we will finally be getting around to Heather singing the Sakura song.
That is the goal.
That is the goal, and I am super excited to hear the song in full because you have a very nice singing voice.
Oh, thank you. That's very sweet.
You're
Thank you very
welcome.
much.
But until Friday, I suppose, everyone, when we give you our summer ghost story, that's everything from me.
That's all for me.
Okay, guys, matane.
またね